Shalom everyone, Happy Lag BaOmer. In today's video, we will be discussing Gate 9 and Gate 10 of Likkutei Yirah. This is a very special video as we will be explaining the secrets of the Serpent's emergence and its procreation process. With that being said, it is encouraged that the individual will have seen the prior videos in the Likkutei Yirah series in order to have a full understanding of what will be presented. So without further ado, let us begin. Sha'ar Tet, Gate 9. The Serpent Born from Filth. In Book 1 and 2 of the Zohar, an example, Bereshis Aleph, Vabes, a variety of passages are presented of which describe the serpent as emerging from the Zoma, or filth. I will now explain the mystery of this snake in terms of its birth, purpose, and existence. The filth, or dross, the serpent is birthed from, is our collective sum of experiences. The dross, or filth, an example experiences, collectively build on the respective form, an example hod, our emotion form. And through this collection of experiences birth perspective. This perspective, as time progresses and more experiences are added, personify the serpent. Our sages stated that this serpent has 7 heads. This is because the 7 forms accumulatively collect the sum of experiences. The dross, as time progresses, causes collective sum of experiences to grow in capacity. Over time, it develops an identity of its own, an example, the voice within your mind. This voice, often associated with the higher self, in many places, is in reality the serpent, an example, the collective sum of experiences personified as a persona. This serpent then speaks to you. This is the power of the serpent, as it was stated in Genesis, and it was explained that the serpent spoke to the woman. Bereshis, chapter 3, verse 1, Genesis, chapter 3, 1. Vayomer el Chaisha, and he spoke to the woman. It is also explained in the beginning of the same verse. And the serpent was craftier than all the beasts of the field. Ve'anechash chaya arom mechal chayot hasada. We will now explain why he was craftier than all the beasts of the field. It is written, 7 days under the mother, and on the 8th day a fire offering to Hashem. Leviticus chapter 22, verse 27. When an ox, a sheep, or a goat is born, it must remain under its mother for 7 days. On the 8th day, it will be acceptable as a fire offering to Hashem. Commentary. Bina here is called the mother, which is the 8th Sfirot, above the lower 7, and is also called a fire offering to Hashem. The lower 7 are thus called animals, an example, 7 days under the mother. Bina, the 8th Sefirot. Regarding this, it is written, on the 8th day the males will be circumcised. The ox refers to Gevurah, the sheep to Chesed, and the ram to Tifereth, which are under the mother, an example, Bina, the 8th Sefirah, called mother. Here is an example of a tree of life in which Kether, Hokmah, and Bina are stacked on top of each other. From the commentary regarding the verse we just read, 7 days refer to the lower 7 Sefirot, Chesed, Gevurah, Tifres, Netzach, Hod, Yisod, and Malchut. These are likened to the level called animals, and we find that they are under the mother, An example, under the sphere of Bina, which goes by the Partsuf name Ima, which means mother. Thus it says, 7 days under the mother on the 8th day, an example, the 8th Sphirot, an example, the sphere of Bina, a fire offering to Hashem. We see on page 80 an example of this. We see the lower 7 Sphirot, Chesed, Gevur, Tifres, Netzach, Hod, Yisod, and Malkuth, which now have been identified as the level of our forms, our spirit form, desire form, holy form, soul form, emotion form, mental form, and physical form. It was just explained that this 7-headed serpent is birthed out of the totality of experience from these 7 forms, or the dross, or Zoma. And this collective totality of experiences, which is the sum of experiences, personifies this voice, an example, this serpent, that then speaks to us. Let us continue onward and see what we can learn about the nature of this 7-headed serpent. Thus we understand that as time progresses onward, dross, an example, collective sum of experiences build upon the vessels, an example, the 7 forms in Yetzirah. And from this collective dross, an example, filth, the serpent is formed, Yetzer, with its 7 heads. We find regarding this serpent that it is craftier than the beasts. An example, it is craftier than the 7 forms called beasts, in that it is the collective totality of their dross, or sum of experiences. This collective totality of experiences convinces the individual that the serpent is the individual itself. An example, your thoughts are you and your emotions are you, as opposed to your choice by which acts upon thoughts or emotions, etc., that you are subjected to. As time progresses, the serpent, an example, the sum of experiences, first convinces you in that the individual surrenders his choice to impulse, an example, the individual feels an emotion and simply reacts without choice. Later in life, this same serpent then moves to convince you that it is God. The latter parts of a person's life, after being progressed through accumulative masses of the sums of experience, then moves, after convincing its host, an example, the individual, that it is the true identity speaking, an example, the voice of the mind, the collective sum of experiences. Later in the life of the individual, he comes to believe that the accumulative collective of the sum of experiences which personify his identity is then God. An example, the voice in his head is actually God now speaking. First, the serpent, an example, the sum of experiences, personifies the identity. Later, this same serpent, an example, the sum of experience, personifies God speaking to them. Thus a person comes to first be subdued by that serpent, in that it takes the identity. An example, your mind or your emotions or your desires become your true reality, and they then surrender their choice. An example, they simply react to thought or simply react to emotion, and that then in turn become the reality. And after many years, the serpent then convinces the individual that it is then God speaking to them. The truth is that you are a spark of the endless, which personifies as existence, and you have these forms as it was explained in a previous gate, but you are not any of these forms. You are a spark of the infinite, or spark of the endless. An example, you are a piece of the experience of God, and you simply have these forms to express that light from. After time passes by, collective sums of experiences from our emotion form, our soul form, our mental form, our physical form, our desire form, etc., begin to grow, and the Zoma, or dross, built off of these forms, collectively begin to personify an identity. That identity is, in truth, the serpent, having 7 heads, because it speaks through these 7 forms. It then convinces the individual that it is the individual itself. An example, the voice in your mind. An example, the idea of you is then you. And after having succeeded in subduing the person's choice, an example that the voice in their mind is truly them, it then moves in latter ends of life to convince the individual that it is in fact God speaking to them. Sha'ar Yud, Gate 10, the breeding serpent. We will now explain the nature of the serpent and its procreation process. It was explained in Gate 9 that the serpent is the collective sum of experiences that are built upon the 7 forms, expressed in earlier gates. Now we will explain the nature of this serpent. It is written in Book 1 of the Zohar, Bereshis A cloud of sorrow hovers above the heads of the wicked who are being eliminated by the Holy One. As it is written, a man after his desires, demon after demon. Commentary. Sorrow refers to the negative sums of experiences by which form the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, and this hovers above the head of the individual in that Yetzirah, an example, the forms and the sums of experiences of the forms reside above the head of the individual, an example, in Asiya. Thus our experiences become filtered through the sum of experiences. The current experience then becomes altered by the sum of experiences, and a new experience in the likeness of this filtered sum of experience is birth, as it were, into existence. Hence it is written later, demon after demon. An example, a negative sum of experience filters a current experience, breeding, as it were, by distorting any given experience through the lens of the sum of experience, by which breeds, as it were, a new negative experience, an example, a demon. Thus the serpent breeds the individual by birthing demon after demon, an example, distorted experience after distorted experience, collectively amassing its own existence over time. As with all things within the Simsum, the restriction, an example, the vacancy, the nature is self-centered, a restricted state and based in self-preservation, a further restricted state. So too we see the serpent breeds experiences to continue its own perceived existence. Like a serpent, it restricts, an example, it coils around the individual's operations by filtering the experience through the lens of the sum of experience, breeding according to its kind. And this is the secret of. So the Egyptians appointed taskmasters over the Israelites to oppress them with forced labor. As a result, they built Pithom and Ramses as storehouses for Pharaoh. Taskmaster, Sarai, refers to the serpent, who's being appointed over the vessels, an example Israel, to oppress them with forced labor by filtering the current experience through the sum of experiences. This causes the vessels to build storehouses. Pithom refers to Lilith, and Feitav have a value of 480, and this refers to Lilith. That also has a numerical value of 480. Fe is a value 80 and Tav is value 400. Lilith is Lamed is 30, Yod is 10, Lamed is 30, Yod is 10, and Tav is 400. Collectively, they have the same value. Ramses refers to the evil inclination, and so his name can be read as from an evil horse, Merah Sos. Again, it is written, Pharaoh mounted his chariot. Now, Sarai hints to the serpent because Sarai has the same numerical value as the word Tanan. Tanan means primordial serpent. And so we can see here all is in order. Thus we see on page 87 an example of the levels. We see here 2 individuals looking at each other, and in gate 1 you'll have been made privy to the concepts of Aleph separates Mem from Shin. You can see they are talking to each other, and both of them have the 7 forms, an example, the levels of the Merkava, or the chariot. And both of them also have the Yetzer Hatov and the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination and the good inclination, as is shown here. We've now been made privy to, and it has been explained, the creation of these serpents, and how they interact, and how they reproduce, facilitating good experiences and evil experiences. We've also learned how this same serpent then convinces the individual that it is truly the individual. And after having done this, it convinces the individual that it in turn is God. Many people in the Western mysteries call this ego and superego. Now, in the first video that we did regarding this, these levels were discussed, and we now see the world of Asiya, which was personified by the concepts of Aleph separates Mem from Shin. We now see the levels of Yetzirah, where we mention the forms, and we also see the sum of experiences, in example, the seven-headed serpent. Soon we will enter into the higher levels, and with this understand why the book opened up in the beginning and said this: Zot Torah Chola, this is the Torah of Ascension. With that being said, there is a QR code presented at the very beginning of this video, which contains this entire text, Likkutei Yirah. There are also physical copies available on both Amazon and bookbaby.com. All proceeds from those safers are donated to Tzedakah.